Okie dokie.
Okay, you're live.
All right, thank you. Okay, so with that, we will begin tonight's Conservation Commission meeting, and I will start by reading our remote meeting introduction. So as a preliminary matter, this is Ashley Erisman, Chair of the Nantucket Conservation Commission. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mark Beal.
Here.
Seth Engelborg.
Here.
Erisman is here. Ian Golding.
Here.
We are waiting on Dave LaFleur and Maureen Phillips, and then Joe Topham.
Here.
Okay. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Joanne Dodd.
Here.
You. Anticipated speakers on the agenda, please respond in the affirmative. We have Art Gasparo.
Here.
Art, congratulations.
Thank you.
Maureen Phillips, and then Joe. Brian Madden.
Here.
Lachlan.
Yeah.
Looks like Steve Cohen is connecting. Maureen, can you hear us? And do you have audio? Can you unmute just to test it?
Yeah, is that okay now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh.
Thank you. All right, so good evening. This open meeting of the Nantucket Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with the agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Nantucket Conservation Commission is convening by video conference via Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and to take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comments, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or your computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in a conversation with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. And for items with public comment, after members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment as follows. Staff will activate the chat feature on YouTube. Members of the public who have comments or questions can use this feature to communicate with the public body, and instructions are on the town's website. The chair and/or staff will do their best to answer all questions and comments. And finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll vote. So with that, we will open up the public meeting, public comment, and I we'll give any members of the public a couple of minutes to type in. So it looks like our public is pretty small with just 9 people. So I will announce our continuances, and then I will go back and check to see if any members of the public have chimed in. So the following items are continued tonight under notices of intent. The town of Nantucket at 34 Washington Street is continued until September 17th. Eli Zabar at 47 Squam Road is continued until August 6th. Nantucket Islands Land Bank at 73 Washington Street is continued until August 6th. 62 Cliff Road Realty Trust at 62 Cliff Road is continued until August 6th. And then under certificates of compliance, Silver Fox Partners Real Estate LLC at 235 Nantucket Road is continued until September 3rd. And Nantucket Conservation Foundation at 183, 185, and 187 Eel Point Road is continued until August 6th. And then in other business, discussion of SBPF 77 through 122 Baxter Road, at 65 through 67 Baxter Road are continued until August 6th. Looks like we still don't have public comment, so we will start the public hearing with notices of intent. And we will begin with Nantucket Wheelhouse LLC at 13 Massachusetts Avenue. And this is represented by Art Gasparo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the second public hearing for the application to change the supports for the elevated walkway from 4x4s to driven helical anchors. That's the extent of the application, no change in footprint as previously described. We were waiting for sign off from Natural Heritage, which we received today. They have required that some certain conditions be included in the order, which of course we're amenable to, probably primarily including a time of year restriction so that we don't start. I think it's till after August 31st, but I don't think there was any questions that were outstanding from the commission from the first hearing, though I am happy to address any questions you may have now. Thank you.
Thank you, Art. Are there any questions from commissioners? Looks like no. So we can open that up to the public, and we'll give the public a minute to chime in. Can't imagine there would be many comments on this one at this point. Joanne, do we have everything we need to close this pending public comment?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So Art, since we have everything we need to close and there's no public comment, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Is there a motion? Motion made by Joe. Is there a second? Seconded by Dave. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Harrisman, aye. Golding,
Aye.
LaFleur,
Aye.
Phillips,
Aye.
Topham. Oh, you're muted, Joe.
Aye.
Right. That passes unanimously. Thank you, Art.
Thank you.
That moves us on to 5 Sherburne Way LLC at 5 Sherburne Way, and this is represented by Art Gasparo and Sarah Alger. I'm not sure Sarah's here for this, but.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm before you tonight with a notice of intent application to provide beach access from an existing developed residential property down a coastal bank through a coastal dune to get to the coastal beach. And we're located up off of Sherburne Way near, just kind of off in between Lincoln Circle and Kimball Ave. And currently there is an old asphalt path that exists in the coastal bank and crisscrosses across the adjacent property and comes back onto this property and then through the dune. And well, the applicant, there's no rights to go over onto the other property. The applicant would like to remove the asphalt, restore the coastal bank, and then just use a more traditional set of beach stairs, which we believe is beneficial to the coastal bank resource area by being elevated above the surface of the bank itself, allowing vegetation growth below. Removal of that asphalt would also be, I think, considered a benefit. And then we would create a new path to the beach through an area that would disturb as least amount of vegetation as possible, no regrading, not dissimilar to the application in Surfside not too long ago. And then the old path through the beach would be planted with beach grass. The set of stairs that's granite steps on the east side of the property would remain, and that portion of the asphalt path to get back over onto the other property, that part would stay. We've done the calculations included in the notice in terms of removal of the asphalt, and like I said, believe this would be a benefit. There's photos that may help describe this. This one would have been a good one, I think, for a site visit pre-COVID. But hopefully the photos help sort of give a feel for, what's there now and what would otherwise have to be, really maintained. It hasn't been maintained in quite some time, cutting back of vegetation as well as the asphalt starting to crack and deteriorate. And frankly, the applicants are concerned with sort of the slope and the crisscrossing going down that being safe compared to just having a set of beach stairs. So we believe this meets your performance standards and would be a benefit to remove the asphalt. We will be continuing for natural heritage response. Not the entire property is within their jurisdiction, though I show the map limit on the plan. It's essentially the path through the dune. And again, we believe that it would be preferable to have in that area just your traditional, I guess I would say, Nantucket style and similar to the others that exist in this area, footpath as opposed to a large elevated structure through that area. With that, I'd be happy to try to address any questions or concerns that you may have with the application.
Are there any questions, Ian?
Yes, Madam Chair. Art, congratulations.
Thank you.
And so I'd like to see detailed drawings of the, the steps going down to the beach. So I'm a bit surprised there aren't any.
Okay, I've already been, if I may, through you, Madam Chair, been in touch with a local architect who is working on it. This is kind of
great. Thanks.
fast. And we did, I did try to show a somewhat realistic and, not plan on the plan and not just a, straight 3-foot shot down. We all know that was sort of the way they used to be constructed, but under current building codes, you can't have a straight, shot that you have to break up your, the lengths of the run. So that if someone were to fall, they don't go, all the way down.
But
we'll work on it. We are working on it.
Thank you. And I mean, clearly, the least obtrusive, the better. And because that I feel is our sort of brief. So if that could be taken into account, please, Art. I understand the difficulties now with modern codes that even if you want to make it as discreet as possible, it's hard to do so.
I'll convey that.
Thank you.
Then Seth, did you have a question or comment?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Similar vein, it looks to me like there possibly is a jut out in the stairs in the middle that maybe is a landing, but I'm not sure. I was trying to get clarification on that. And if it is, to try to see the design schematic of that. And then also, I'm a little bit confused as to why the granite steps to the existing asphalt path are remaining. I feel like if the path's coming out and the bank's going to be restored, we would want a full bank restoration there rather than having the steps that essentially lead to nowhere remain.
Thank you, Seth. Art, do you have a reply to that?
Sure. The asphalt path that would lead on to, that's the neighbors would use those granite steps to get back over onto their property so that they wouldn't have to do a new set of steps from their top of bank. So the piece of the asphalt that runs, if it's not, I'm not sure if it's entirely clear, but I would be happy if it's okay with you. I have the plan on my screen, which I could share. You may have it open anyway, but essentially, you know, I show a red line stopping. The asphalt that gets removed is at the bottom and then at the top to those stairs. And then you would have a piece, right? You would have that piece of asphalt remain because it goes over onto the neighbor's property. And then that's how they get to the beach. So if we take those granite steps out, then it's going to cause more disturbance there. And then the neighbors would have to put in a new set of stairs on their property. So that's the idea, is that they would use that and keep going the way they've been going, but we would take out, 2/3 or 3/4 probably of the asphalt path that exists from the top of the bank as a slope down to those stairs.
Thank you, Art.
That makes sense.
Thank you, Art. Perhaps this is beyond our purview, but it seems a little odd that the neighbors would continue to have access over property that's not theirs, but the applicant is unable to have access over the neighbor's property. And I'm just, it's not exactly related to wetlands, it's more of a legal issue, but I'm just a little bit confused to that part of the application. And if that is the relationship that exists, it's fine. It just doesn't seem exactly to make sense to me.
Thank you, Seth. And I have to say, I agree with both Seth and Ian's questions. I kind of felt the same way about the stair set and that potential landing, and then the remaining asphalt. And Art, I might have missed it in your application, but I was wondering if you had like a square foot assessment of how much asphalt you're removing compared to like the landing area of the stairs and those sorts of things.
I did. I put it into the forms themselves, but I could break that out a little bit more detail for you. It's on page, in the notice of intent forms where it asks for disturbance of the resource areas is where I put that information.
Okay. Thank you. I must have just missed it in the pages.
I'm looking at your packet
Yeah.
compared to my application, and it seems like maybe it was truncated. So it is in the complete application, and I don't see those pages here. So I'll make sure that you get those.
Thank you. Mark?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, but Art, has the neighbor asked them to not use that property anymore? Did I miss that in your presentation?
I'm working for an applicant who's not the owner. And so the idea is to, separate the uses of those properties. And the current applicant does not want to use a sloped asphalt path to come and go from the beach. So they want to have a set of stairs.
Well, a follow-up, Madam Chair, then I'm confused why we wouldn't want to ask that the granite stairs be removed from the applicant's property.
I believe that part of it is that there is a conservation restriction on the adjacent property that may limit the ability for some stairs on there, but I can get you a little more information on that.
I'd like that, please.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Joe?
Yeah, I agree that the platforms going down the slope are quite large. And I do agree with Art that, you do have to stagger those steps, because I've seen clients, have a long run and it's very intimidating. They think they're going to fall down. So I do think that a platform and then switching it up, I think those switchbacks are very important for someone's mental psyche. So, but I do think the platforms are a little large. Thank you.
I'll discuss that with the architect.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners before we look to the public? Mark?
Just again, a follow-up, Art. So you're saying the applicant is not the owner of the property?
Yes, sir.
And exactly what does that mean? Are they under contract or?
I believe so.
Thank you.
Great. So if there are no other questions or comments from commissioners, I'll look at the public comment, which looks like we have none at this point, but if the public does want to comment on this application, now is the time. And I will check back. Art, you said you're waiting on natural heritage for this one?
That's correct.
Okay.
We will, whenever you're ready, request a continuance, and I'll work on, getting you answers and to the questions that were raised today.
Thank you, Art. Well, it looks like we have no public comment on this one. So any last minute questions for Art or comments before we continue? Right. If not, Art, would you like to continue for 2 weeks?
Yes, please.
Okay, so this,
So moved.
okay, so that'll continue until August 6th for us.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then that brings us on to Phyllis J. and Donald T. Visco at 67 Easton Street. This is a withdrawal, so we just need a motion to accept the withdrawal.
I so move.
Is there a second?
Sure.
Seconded by Ian. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Harrisman, I, Golding,
Aye.
LaFleur,
Aye.
Phillips,
Aye.
Popham. Oh, you're muted again.
Aye.
All right, thank you. So that withdrawal is accepted unanimously. And that brings us on to Stephen and Martha Peterson at 11 East Hallywell Lane. And this is represented by Brian Madden, who's here today. Hi, Brian.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Representing the Petersons that just recently bought the property. Last year, this property was subject to a septic upgrade. A determination of applicability was issued. Currently, what's surrounding the house is somewhat unmaintained, kind of pseudo lawn areas that are currently a mix of native grasses, orchard grasses, most predominant, with a fair amount of poison ivy mixed in with the vegetation. And so the intent is to establish lawn areas. We're not talking sod. What the proposed plan is to mow, rototill, and then seed with a native drought tolerant fescue mix. There's no permanent irrigation or fertilizers proposed. There will be some temporary irrigation to help things establish. We're not proposing any soil amendments, and as proposed, there are no waivers required for the project. And I can turn it over to questions.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions from commissioners? Maureen?
I just want to say, Brian, I'm glad you mentioned about the seeding and the fertilizer, because I was kind of wondering, lawn again, you know, what does that mean? And I'm glad it's the kind of natural lawn that you're planning. So thank you for that.
No problem. Yeah, really the intent is to control the poison ivy. So they have an area around the house.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Brian, do you anticipate needing to stabilize the soil at all after you rototill and seed, or is it like relatively flat?
It's relatively flat immediately around the house. It kind of slopes up to the east, abutting the driveway. But if anything were to kind of wash out, it would all go into the driveway, not towards the coastal bank. But I wouldn't really expect with these well-drained soils to have any erosion issues.
Thank you. So if there are no other questions from commissioners, I will look back at our really small public, and I'll give them a minute or to chime in. Joe, do we have everything we need to close this one?
Yes, we do.
So, Madam Chair,
Yes, Ian?
so when you talk about a sort of natural lawn, how is that going to be conditioned?
Well, you know, I think typically you could put in the no permanent irrigation, no fertilizer condition. If the commission wants to put some markers up by the boundaries to it, certainly that would be acceptable.
So is there going to be any replacement of the bayberry or anything? I mean, how is that going to be handled? Or is it going to be for croquet, so to speak?
Actually, the area of lawn establishment does not encroach into any woody vegetated areas. It's all within the grassed area currently. And I have to imagine that it's been mowed over the years because woody vegetation hasn't established. And it's just really, again, to curb the poison ivy and having the dog be able to run around the house.
Thanks, Brian.
No problem.
Brian. Any other questions from commissioners? It looks like the public is quiet on this one. So since we have everything we need to close, Brian, would you like to close?
Please.
Is there a motion?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Okay, Ian made the motion. Is that seconded by you, Mark? Okay. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg, oh, Seth, you're muted.
Aye.
Arisman, aye. Golding,
Aye.
LaFleur,
Aye.
Phillips,
Aye.
Topham.
Aye.
That carries unanimously. And that moves us on to ABH LLC at 4 Stone Barn Way, and this is represented by Brian Madden.
Thank you. Brian Madden from LEC Environmental representing the applicant. The proposed project is to elevate and reconstruct the foundation for the single-family dwelling in compliance with flood zone regulations and building code. Currently, the foundation, there's a below-grade crawl space with a permanent dewatering system in place. And there is a offsite wetland to the southeast IBW, and the entire property is within land subject to coastal storm flowage. So the proposed foundation, elevating the structure. So the top of the foundation is at elevation 8. And what we're proposing is an at-grade crawl space with no dewatering, no permanent dewatering. Any temporary dewatering for removal of the below grade crawl space will be directed to catch basin out on North Beach Street in compliance with DPW authorization. The crawl space above grade will have flood vents in conformance with floodplain regs. With the structure being elevated, there needs to be some upgrades to the stairs for access and egress. They need to be, raised higher. But overall, we were able to get a net reduction of 6 square feet of structure within the 25-foot buffer zone to that isolated wetland offsite. And there's some reconfiguration to the brick patio area south of the dwelling. There's a reduction of 53 square feet, a brick patio being removed within the 25-foot as well. AC unit on the side of the house is going to be elevated above the floodplain, flood zone elevation. All utilities are going to be reconnected. There's no regrading proposed here. And we have requested the waiver for the 2 feet separation and work within the 25 and 50-foot buffers to that offsite wetland. But the improved foundation will significantly result in a net benefit to the resource areas. And that's all.
Thank you, Brian. All right. Are there any questions from commissioners? Joe?
So to the chair, Brian, will the foundation stop at the high water mark? Because you're going to go down about 3 feet and hit water, right? So you don't need to go down any deeper, right?
Don Bracken is on the call. I'll let him answer. Excuse me.
Yeah, I can answer that, Joe. I mean, typically what they do is they'll go about 6 inches deep with stone. And if the bottom of the footing is in the water table, you don't have to meet that 4-foot frost protection. So it really depends on what time of year possibly, or how much precipitation they had beforehand, but they will put down 6 inches of stone, and it may require some dewatering, but it shouldn't be a lot.
Okay. No, I across the street, I went down 18 inches and hit water.
Yeah.
So just a filter fabric gravel, and that worked out really well. And then infill the crawl space with gravel or clean fill?
That would be clean fill, I'm sure. And then there'll be a concrete cap, and the elevation of the crawl space will be higher than the outside grade, so it can drain freely.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners? I know I had a question just about the site history here because of the patio and the brick walkway within the 25, and I just didn't know when that was developed or if the wetland boundaries changed after it was developed. Do you have any information on that?
Yeah, there was an order of conditions issued, I believe, in 2014 for that brick patio. They did not show that offsite wetland, and it's kind of inconspicuous. And I think it may have increased in size, maybe based on the permanent dewatering that took place out there. But there's not standing water, but there is high groundwater in that area.
Okay. Because I know, frankly, I would like to see that proposed patio in the back kind of go away. I just feel like this should not be so close to the wetland. And I also think the proposed trash bin needs to move because I think that would be considered structural, and you have it within the 50.
Yeah, that's existing.
Oh, it says proposed on our plan.
Oh. It is existing, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, and they've taken effort to reduce that brick patio as much as possible with having some outdoor space that, again, was permitted back in 2014. And I think there was some modifications, I think, in addition to that structure as well. So that was previously approved, and there's a cumulative of 53 square feet of reduction of that brick patio.
Thank you, Brian.
No problem.
If there's no other questions from commissioners, I will look at public comment, although it looks like we have a very, very quiet public today. Joanne, do we have everything we need to close this one?
Yes, we do.
Any last minute thoughts from commissioners? Like, no. Again, our public is quiet. So Brian, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Is there a motion?
Motion to close.
Motion made by Dave. Is there a second? I think Maureen got the second. By roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Aye.
Arisman, I, Golding,
Aye.
LaFleur,
Aye.
Phillips,
Aye.
Topham.
Aye.
Great, that passes unanimously. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
And that brings us to Cedar Viewpoint LLC at 40 Shakamo Road, and this is also represented by Brian Madden.
Thank you. For the record, Brian Madden from LEC. The proposed project involves renovation of the guest house closer towards Shakamo Road. You can see in that location, last year we came in with a certificate of compliance to close out 2 older orders, and at that time had refreshed the wetland resource areas for the BVW on the west and east sides of the property and coastal bank buffers, which you see here. The renovation of the guest house is all outside the 100-foot buffer zone to the coastal bank, but there's some modifications to the driveway that result in some regrading into the 100-foot buffer zone, upgrading to the 50-foot. You can see on the site plan, and there's a new septic system for the guest cottage outside the 100-foot buffer zone, but there are septic upgrades up closer towards the primary house, primary dwelling, for removing the or abandoning the older septic tanks and installing a new microfast vent and blower unit, and new tanks associated with that, and new sewer lines and force mains. All that's within previously developed lawn landscaped areas, and no waivers required for this, and that's the extent of it.
Thank you, Brian.
No problem.
Any questions or comments from commissioners? And as I say that, if the public has comment, they can start typing in too. So Brian, I had one question, and I think it's just more a point of confusion for me. The proposed 12-bedroom reserved area, is that like for future, or are you clearing that now? I realize it's out of our jurisdiction.
No, it wouldn't be.
I'll answer that, Brian.
All right.
Yeah, so, that area is not going to be cleared at this time. That's just a reserve area. If 20, 30 years down the road, it ever has to be utilized, then that space is provided if they ever need it. But the only area that's going to be cleared is where you see the proposal absorption system to the left of the driveway.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Commissioners, you're pretty quiet too, like the public today. So it looks like you guys don't have any questions. The public is still quiet. Joanne, do we have everything we need to close this one?
This actually is in natural heritage, so we need to wait on that.
Okay. Again, it looks like our 10-person public, of which I am one, is pretty quiet. So, Brian, would you like to continue for 2 weeks?
Please, yes, 2 weeks.
Okay, so this will continue until August 6th.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that brings us on to BSS Hummick Pond LLC and Hummick Pond Holdings LLC at 287 and 289 Hummick Pond Road. And this is represented by Brian Madden.
Thank you very much. I'll let the screen come up. Okay, so this is 2 properties that have an address of off of Hummick Pond Road, but they are accessed via a shared driveway and roadway referred to as Mothball Way. These are at the very end. Just the resource areas involved here to the south. We have an eroding coastal bank. The coastal bank that's shown on the plan is from an accurate, a recent survey. There's BVW to the north associated with Hummick Pond. And then there's coastal dune and barrier beach to the west, offsite primarily. And there's also flood zone associated with the, basically to the north, south, and west. For 289 has had a longer permitting history. Back in 2007, there was a application and an order of conditions issued for reconstruction of that structure, what you see today. And there used to be a dune out front, which had been eroded out and leaving only a coastal bank. And in 2013, we received an order of conditions for adding nourishment material and Sandra fencing. And so after 5 years of doing annual monitoring and renourishment, in 2018, a notice of intent was filed for a fiber roll reinforced lift system, which was ultimately withdrawn due to lack of support. So since that time, the applicant acquired 289 Hummick Pond, the property to the east, and they're common ownership but under different LLCs, and kind of walk you through the proposed work activities out here. So the proposal involves a demo or move off of the structure on 287 Hummick Pond Road, relocating the structure at 289 to 287's footprint with some renovations and additions. There is going to be a new foundation installed that will maintain a 2-foot separation of high groundwater to the BVW associated with Hummick Pond. Within the crawl space, there will be mechanicals. Within the deck area, there is a proposed shallow fiberglass pool, and I'll get into that a little bit later. The driveway is proposed to be relocated, and basically everything closer to that eroding coastal bank is being abandoned and being restored. And I'll get into that a little bit later. There is Board of Health approval for a new microfast septic system south of the proposed house relocated structure on 287. And the existing garage on 287 is being relocated. Currently, it's 33 feet from the top of the coastal bank, and it's being proposed to be 51 feet away from the coastal bank. And just for the structural comparison, the existing house at 289 is currently 12 feet from the top of the coastal bank, and proposed relocated point, the closest point is 63 feet away. Currently, you can see on the plan, there's an existing septic and tight tank that's partially exposed along the coastal bank. Yes, right in that location. That is not an actively utilized coastal bank. And late last year, there was discussion with conservation staff and Board of Health on what exactly to do with that. And once we confirmed that it was no longer active, I think the collective thought was to let it be and remove it once it's fully exposed, to avoid excavation into the coastal bank and causing further instability. So we would be proposing to do that when it's exposed, and that area could be, the tank could be easily lifted up from the top of the existing driveway and taken off site. And circling back to the shallow fiberglass pool, that is the only new structural component for the project. But it's been designed in consideration of the surrounding resource area. And it's being proposed in lieu of a standard pool with a concrete foundation. This is a shallow fiberglass prefabricated pool that's can be easily installed and easily removed. And it's 75 feet away at the closest point to the top of the coastal bank. And that's representing greater than 20 times the average of the annual rate of erosion that we've documented out there with instrument survey since 2012, so over the last 8 years. And again, that's 75 feet away. And so overall, the proposed project is going to result in a significant net benefit to the surrounding resource areas. And there's a net reduction of structure within the 25-foot buffer zone by 317 square feet. Within the 25 to 50 foot, there's a reduction of about 1,600 square feet. We're increasing all the setbacks to the resource areas. Removing that structure on 289 will allow for no structures within the 100-foot buffer zone to the coastal bank, coastal dune, and barrier beach to the west of the property. Again, we're doing the septic upgrade, which will improve conditions out here, and basically removing an existing system in place. And cumulatively, it may be somewhat difficult to tell on this plan, but if you look closely, you can see the outline of the existing driveway. So yeah, starting on the east side of the property, right against that limit of work is a previously existing driveway that's no longer in use, but there is some gravel and material there that would be removed. And the intent to remove that portion of the driveway and all portions of the driveway south and west of the garage, the relocated garage, and that leading up to the house at 289, and restoring that entire footprint. We would replace sand volume. So that area would just be regraded out. And then we propose to restore with a combination of American beach grass and or native shrubs such as bayberry, Virginia rose, maybe seaside rose if the commission was amenable to that. But the intent would be to naturalize that entire area, and that cumulatively amounts to about 5,500 square feet of the property. And that hits the broad strokes. We can turn it over to questions at this point in time.
Thank you, Brian. All right, Seth?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, personally, I'd definitely like to not see Seaside Rose. I'm assuming you're referring to Rosa rugosa there,
Yeah.
which is a non-native species, and I would like to not see that. And then also, in general, I think this project is really well thought out. The only question I have is about the pool and the portion of the deck that's within the 50-foot buffer to the BBW to the north, which looks like it's representing additional footprint that was not occupied by the existing dwelling. So I was wondering if that could possibly be reconfigured to get that extra structure out of the 50-foot area.
Yeah, we can take a closer look at that. We're not moving any closer to the BVW than existing conditions, but yes, that pool area does minimally extend into the 50-foot buffer to the BVW. The intent there was, we're kind of balancing the resource areas and maybe what's the most sensitive. And so the proposal was to maximize that distance separation to the coastal bank. And that area is kind of working within previously developed conditions west of the existing deck. But I mean, if the commission would like us to take a closer look at that area, we can certainly do so.
I know, Brian, I have to echo what Seth said when I saw the pool within the 50. I think it has to not be there. And what is the rate of erosion at this location?
So within the last last 8 years since we've been doing some pretty regular survey of the top of the coastal bank, the average is 3.8 feet per year within that short-term period.
Okay. I grew up in Cisco, so I'm very familiar with this coastline, and the roads that are no longer there that would have been like in front of these properties. So, I'd really like them to consider removing the pool and some of those extra structures, because I think, as you know, this bluff area could easily lose 30 feet in one storm. I know out here it was probably 10 years ago that some people lost about 60 feet in one winter season. So I'm just concerned with adding any new kind of structural area to a property that's so actively eroding. I'm also a little bit concerned, and I guess we could condition this, but the removal of the existing septic, I'm worried that one storm could expose it and make it difficult to remove. One big storm could make that tough. So I just don't know if we can condition it, to be removed within 5 days of complete exposure, or how we can actually make sure that doesn't stay on the beach or end up in the ocean in front. Because it's a very actively eroding coastline out there, and I'm surprised that it's only just over 3 feet a year average.
Yeah, I mean, that is what we've documented over that 8-year period. And certainly we can take a closer look at and around that pool area. But as I previously said, the design of it we were thinking in mind of if and when it would need to be removed. With the fiberglass shallow pool, it can just be popped in and out, and we're not doing excavation or having to deal with removal of concrete foundation, anything like that. It really would be simple to remove, but we can take a closer look at maximizing those setbacks And I will say at this point in time, pending approval of this particular project, we would be coming in later on for relocation of the driveway off-site to the east to increase those setbacks to the coastal bank. There's a prescribed easement out there that we would be relocating the driveway to. So kind of the cumulative effort here is to maximize, separations to the eroding coastal bank and minimize the structural footprints.
Thank you, Brian.
Madam Chair, this is Stephen Cohen. Can I say something for the applicant as well?
Sure.
So just to follow up on your comment about removal conditions, I think that the applicant, who's my client, would be amenable to that kind of condition, which I know the commission has done before to make sure that there's no, waste on the beach. So we definitely would be open to that kind of condition. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve.
And I sorry to interject. I really think during the course of construction, that's going to become exposed, and we're going to have the equipment out there to remove it.
Thank you, Brian. I think that's probably very realistic. Joe, you had a question or comment?
Yeah, I agree with Seth. I think that this is a really well thought out plan. I do have a problem with the pool and the size of the deck that's within the 50. I did pass by this about 2 weeks ago, walking the beach while I was mountain biking from Rams pasture, and that there's only about 3 foot of that septic system that's poking out. So I kind of agree it's going to come quickly, but I don't think it's going to go too far. I think with the homeowner, if it's still a local person, they're going to know what's going to happen. They're out there all the time. That's something that I think they could take care of very quickly. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joe. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Maureen?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo the concerns about the pool and the additional deck there. I know this is a extremely complicated plot of ground where you kind of have intersecting protected areas, resource areas, and trying to squeeze the old, trying to squeeze the existing buildings into that thing is not easy to do. But I think at the same time, the idea of a pool that can pop out, I would certainly, that's an idea I would like other people to consider on this island rather than digging concrete foundation pools in pretty precarious places. But, given the proximity of the property, to the ocean, I think there's an argument to be said that the pool may not be as necessary as in some other instances. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. All right, so if there's no more comments from commissioners, I'm going to read our public comment. So we have comment from Burton Balkind. And he says 289 and 287 have undergone rapid erosion the last few years. If the trend continues, the proposed septic area would be in the 50-foot coastal bank in no time. Also, the property to the east has installed an underground wall, which will shift even more erosion to both the east and the west. I would seriously look at the erosional rate and question if this is a good idea for this area. And he would suggest to the commission to do a site visit and use aerial maps to see how much erosion has occurred in the past 5 years. So that is our public comment for tonight. And I, would tend to agree, and I know Jeff's not here right now, but some of these projects coming before us maybe would be good for site visits. So I don't know with COVID if we're going to get site visits going again or how that will work. Joe, do you have?
Yeah, and we can definitely probably set something up if you'd like to go out there, or you're more than welcome to go in your own time and go check out the site too if you don't feel comfortable or meeting on the site. I can definitely talk to Jeff and set up the time if you'd like to go out.
Yeah, or just kind of in general for site visits to come back.
No, I know. I was just talking to somebody about that today. It might be something we can start doing again.
Maureen?
Right, Dan.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I think that a site visit would be a really good idea. And I also like the idea of having, an overhead, have it mapped out as to how things have eroded so we can see how and when, this has, how quickly this has gone as well. And I'm just wondering about, do you remember, Brian, the wall or the Spruce mentioned something in his note there about an existing wall on the property to the east, which is contributing to the problems. Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, I believe he's referring to a few properties down to the east that I think when the wall was installed, it was outside of jurisdictional areas. I don't know if it is now within 100 feet, but that redevelopment property has received NORC conditions and it's been actively under construction for a couple of years, I think, at least.
Okay.
Mark?
Yeah, but on figure 2 and figure 4, it's interesting to note the house lots that are now going overboard.
Mark, can you hold on a second? Oh,
Pardon?
sorry. There was someone on a phone that wasn't muted that was interjecting into what you were saying. So go ahead.
It's interesting to note on figure 2 and figure 4 of the application, the lot lines that existed in prior years. There are a whole series of lots that are now gone totally overboard. This is definitely an rapidly eroding shoreline. We all know about Hummick Pond being now 2 ponds versus 1 not too long ago. So we should be careful in our approval of anything new on the within the 50-foot barrier. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Again, having grown up in this area, this was the first spot that I actually went into a house that had fallen onto the beach. These were my first experiences with it. So it's definitely active erosion out there and has been, my whole lifetime. It's only going to get worse.
Yeah, and I've certainly have seen firsthand over the last 8 years how it's changed.
Yeah. Any final questions or thoughts from commissioners? So Brian, would you like to continue for 2 weeks?
Yes, so we are waiting for natural heritage as well. So yes, 2 weeks, please.
Okay. So this will continue until August 6th. Oh, Maureen? Oh, you're muted. Oh, you're still muted.
Okay, there we are. What about a site visit? Do we want to try and schedule that for this? I personally, I would appreciate, seeing that.
Yeah, Joanne?
Yes, yeah, I can definitely look at the schedule and send out an email to you all and see a time that works to go out there next week.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. I saw a thumbs up from Mark and Ian. I'm definitely up for it, so.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
You won't be in school, Ashley?
Not yet. All right, so this will continue for 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that moves us on to requests for determination. We have Nantucket Westmore Farm LLC at 8 Old Westmore Farm Road, and this is represented by Paul Santos.
Thank you. For the property owner and applicant, Paul Santos with Nantucket Surveyors. Brian Madden actually prepared a report, which is part of the filing. And if Brian is on too, if you have any questions, I'm sure he'd be happy to answer. And Steve Cohen is the attorney representing the owner / applicant on this particular application. This is an RDA to confirm resource area boundaries. No work is proposed. The two resource area boundaries are a bordering vegetated wetland and a limits or mean high water limits of a certified vernal pool. This is a vernal pool that is behind Westmore Farms, behind the Westmore Club, and that approaches towards Cliff Road. It's a certified vernal pool that Brian did the work on a project that we had at 96 Cliff Road some years back. So the two resource areas associated with the wetland are mean high water, which is the vernal pool limits, and a bordering vegetated wetland. The second component to this application is the fact that there is a man-made koi pond in the central part of the property that we are looking to remove, and we are just confirming that that is in fact not a resource area. Brian's report speaks to the fact that his augering in certain areas of the koi pond showed that it was either concrete lined or had a membrane at the bottom of it. We have done a complete research of Westmore Farms with regard to older site photos and the farm itself, and determined that this is an area that was previously not a wetland. It was just simply an open field area in which these this koi pond, and there were some other koi ponds in the general area which have since been filled also, that are not specifically resource areas. They're not connected to groundwater, and there is a membrane at the bottom of them. So no work proposed. Two resource areas: vernal pool, bordering vegetated wetland, and confirmation that the koi pond is non-jurisdictional. That's the limit of the application, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Paul. Are there any questions from commissioners? Looks like no. Joanne, does staff have a recommendation for this one?
Yes, we recommend a 2A to confirm the resource areas of the vernal pool and the bordering vegetated wetland. And then a -1, which confirms the lined man-made koi pond is not an area under protection. Oh, yeah.
Thank you. If there are no questions, would somebody like a motion to issue a positive 2A and a -1? Joe, is that you making the motion?
I got a motion.
All right. Is there a second? Looks like Mark got the second. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelberg,
Aye.
Arisman, aye, Golding,
Aye.
LaFleur,
Aye.
Phillips,
Aye.
Popham.
Aye.
That carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that moves us on to Conan, Lachlan, and Brooke Hemming Lachlan at 20 Baxter Road. And this is represented by
Hello, Jeff Blackwell here for the applicants. This is a request for determination of applicability simply to confirm the wetland boundaries on the property. There is no work proposed. The owners wanted to have a confirmation of the boundaries before they went into any planning process for landscaping purposes. So what we have on the property is starting at the Baxter Road and working our way toward the Atlantic Ocean. There's a coastal dune and a dune field, which then proceeds toward the ocean, where there's a coastal bank, coastal beach, and land under the ocean. The coastal bank is defined by DEP policy 92-1, which is relates the flood elevation to slopes, and it is a method that's been consistently used here by the commission and allows surveyors to accurately apply a specific formula, if you will, to define the location of coastal banks. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to address them.
Thank you, Jeff. Any questions from commissioners? Joanne, has staff been out to look at this one?
Hi. Yes, so we went out to the site on a Monday and took a look at the area. We have only confirmed that to be the coastal dune as shown on the map or the plan that was submitted. We don't have a coastal bank on here. And then there's the town property that is in front of the lot at 29 Baxter, in between there and the ocean. So we were just going to give it a 2A, confirming the coastal dune.
Okay.
If I may, Madam Chair, that Joanne's representation is completely accurate. The coastal dune boundary is confined to the very easterly end of the property, and then the majority of the land between the east boundary and the ocean is all town of Nantucket. And of course, we would propose to do no work there in the future anyway. Nothing other than there's already a beach path, so I don't envision any proposal whatsoever. Any work that would be undertaken would be on the applicant's property.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions? Oh, Joanne?
Oh, sorry, go on.
Any questions, commissioners, about that? All right. So then is there a motion to issue a positive 2A? Motion made.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Maureen, so by roll vote. Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Harrisman, aye. Golding,
Aye.
LaFleur,
Aye.
Phillips,
Aye.
Papa.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that brings us to minor modification. 262 Pulpus Nominee Trust at 262 Pulpus Road. And this is represented by Brian, I believe.
I'm back. A minor modification is basically slight tweaks to the previously approved locations for the patio, pool, cabana, and landscape areas. And there's also a small bump out in the cabana. All this structural work is outside the 50-foot buffer zone. And it's actually sliding a little bit further away from the resource areas. So it's just memorializing those proposed conditions.
Thank you, Brian.
No problem.
Mark?
Madam Chair, I will abstain from this because I am a direct abutter.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from commissioners? Looks like no. I'll give a brief look. Okay. So is there a motion to accept the minor mod? There's
So
no.
moved, Madam Chair.
All right, so motion made by Ian. Is that seconded by Joe?
Second.
All right, so by roll vote, Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, aye. Golding,
Aye.
LaFleur,
Aye.
Phillips,
Aye.
Topham.
Aye.
Right, so that carries with Commissioner Beal abstaining.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that moves us into certificates of compliance. We have Nantucket Hotel Holdings LLC at 77 Easton Street. Joanne, would you recommend us taking these together or separate?
Yeah, I think Paul can do them all together. Let's go
Okay.
over the site.
So we have SE 48 1986, 2072, and 2442.
Okay, great. Thank you. Paul Santos, Nantucket Surveyors, on behalf of the current property owner of the Nantucket Hotel. This is closing out 3 orders of conditions. The work has been actually completed for some time on these. 2 of the orders go back to the prior owner being the owner that held the property prior to the foreclosure. And the 3rd order is currently was obtained by the current owner. They vary from work on the foundation on the subject property, the construction of the pool, construction of a rear parking area, drainage systems, and so forth. Various number of items that have kind of taken place on the property. There was an older order that was specifically was issued initially for the main construction that had been closed out apparently some time ago. So all 3 of them date back some time. The work has been done. We've inspected the site. What you have before you is a current as-built that was done on the property. In our opinion, all 3 orders have been completed in substantial compliance, or all 3 orders have been completed in substantial compliance with the original orders, and we see no issue with the commission issuing the certificate of compliance for each. It will clean the property up, so there'd be no outstanding orders of conditions on the property itself. Just by way of history, the property is in land subject to coastal storm flowage, and there was a vegetated wetland located to the north of the existing site. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Paul. Any questions from commissioners? Joanne, has staff been able to look at the site?
Yes, so we actually went yesterday and walked all the perimeter of the site, and everything was in compliance with the 3 orders of conditions.
Okay, thank you. If there are no questions, would somebody like to make a motion?
Motion to issue.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Joe. So by roll vote, Beal?
Aye.
Joanne, do you have something to say?
Oh yeah, I just wanted to say for SE 48 1986, we just want to carry forward the condition number 22. For any draining of the pool water for maintenance or repair should not be discharged within the buffer zone to the wetland or the stormwater facilities.
Okay. Dave, would you like to remake your motion with ongoing condition number 22?
I would like to issue the certificate with ongoing condition number 22.
Joe, would you still like the second?
Second still.
Okay. So by roll vote, Beal?
Aye.
Engelborg?
Aye.
Arisman, aye. Golding?
Aye.
LaFleur?
Aye.
Phillips?
Aye.
Topham?
Aye.
Great, that carries unanimously.
Thank you.
And that brings us to orders of conditions. And I know Joanne emailed us out 2 earlier today. So we have Nantucket Wheelhouse LLC at 13 Massachusetts Ave, which is SE 48 3309. Is everybody able to look on their own screens?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
So on this one, here, Madam Chair, I did just add in, because we got the natural heritage in late. You probably don't have it on your version. Under the additional findings for the NHESP, I just put see attached letter for additional conditions for the time of year for plovers and the restrictions they sent on their letter.
Thank you.
So, Madam Chair, is that an added condition 19?
Is that an added condition or is that under, it looks like it's under additional findings?
So if you look on the screen, I think I've just shared my screen. You don't have it in the version you have, Ian. It just says
okay.
there under where it says this area falls into mapped habitat
Yeah.
and requires NHSP, right there it says see attached letter for additional conditions. So
Thank
that
you.
will be included in the order that's issued out.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe. Any other questions or comments about this order? So would somebody like to make a motion to approve the draft that Joanne just shared with us? Mark, are you making the motion?
So moved.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Second.
I think Maureen, gotcha. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Erisman, aye, Golding,
Aye.
LaFleur,
Aye.
Phillips,
Aye.
Topham.
Aye.
Right, so that carries unanimously. And that brings us to Peterson, I guess, is our next one. Stephen and Martha Peterson at 11 East Hallowell Lane.
So for this one, it's just a pretty standard condition number 18 on there. Unless you want to add anything else.
Right. So,
So this is the one that they're making the natural lawn, correct?
yeah.
Correct, yeah. So maybe you mentioned about fertilizers and
Yes.
Yeah, I think I'm going to put, and I know it's in their site description, but that the irrigation is temporary and that there's no fertilizer.
no fertilizer, and what was the other one, sorry?
No irrigation.
Yeah, he mentioned
No,
just temporary irrigation.
I have a bad line. No irrigation, or?
I think he'll probably need it just to
Yeah, that's what I
establish,
thought, to establish.
but he said it was going to be temporary, so they could probably just set up hoses with sprinklers instead of, you know, true irrigation.
So is it temporary irrigation while the lawn is establishing? How would you like that condition to read?
I think that's good that this permit would allow temporary irrigation until the lawn is established.
And then when you talked about the soils being stable, was there anything that came, it felt like it was going to go towards the driveway? But
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we can condition that if erosion becomes evident that they come back to stabilize the soils. Are there any thoughts from commissioners on that one?
Sounds like if they had any erosion, they'd come back and then want to let us know that they've had some problems and then put down some fabric and kind of hold the site together.
Yeah.
Now, I would have thought they would have to come back, Madam Chair, if they had to do additional work.
You would hope that they would, but you never know who's going to install this grass seed and lawn and if they just go for a second try. All right. So any other thoughts, or are we comfortable? And Joanne, are you comfortable with the additions?
yeah, so just to clarify, for the amended, I have no fertilizer, and then also temporary irrigation until lawn is established. Is that correct?
Yeah. Seth?
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think it should also say no permanent irrigation allowed. just so it's more clear.
You know, if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile.
No permanent irrigation permitted. So I'll change condition 20 to say no permanent irrigation permitted.
Thank you, Joe. So would somebody like to make a motion to approve as amended?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Right. Who's going for the second? Second. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Bearsman, aye, Golding,
Aye.
LaFleur,
Aye.
Phillips. You're muted, Maureen.
My husband, all right. Aye.
All right, Topham.
Aye. Sorry.
Your square wasn't highlighted, so you didn't broadcast. All right, so that carries unanimously. And I think those are the only orders we have tonight. So that brings us on to other business approval. Oh, Joanne, do we have something?
Oh yeah, just before we move on, did you have anything in particular that you would like putting into the 4-stone barn way for next week? Or just general conditions for that, for when he drafts the order?
Any thoughts on Stone Barn? I mean, I think the general conditions, if the house is being raised, just make sure the lighting isn't towards that IBW.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. So that moves us on to other business, approval of minutes from July 9th. Any thoughts on the minutes, or are we happy to
It
approve?
was drafted, and thanks as always.
Yes. Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, I think Dave got you verbally, so I'm going to give it to Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
Thanks, Terry.
Terry,
I hope someone's keeping track of these, to see who wins the most often. So.
I know. I try and get it to the first one I see, but sometimes it's tough. So we still need to roll vote the minutes, unfortunately. So Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Erisman, aye, Golding,
Aye.
LaFleur,
Aye.
Phillips,
Aye.
Topham.
Aye.
Great. So those are approved unanimously. And Terry, we're all just so thankful for your amazing minutes. If one of us had to take them, we'd be in trouble. So that moves us on to Town of Nantucket, Sacajah Road, SE 482967. I know most of us were able to do the site visit. I guess that was last Tuesday. And now we're kind of here to discuss repercussions for the damage to the portion of town property. Joanne?
Just to go over to with you, me and Jeff went out to the site. I think it was the end of last week, Friday afternoon or Monday morning, and we saw all the plantings have been put in. It looked great, and it's all where it should be. So just give you a quick report on that.
Thank you, Joanne. Steph?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I was there yesterday as well, and I saw that the plantings had been installed as specified at our site visit.
Was the tree out of there too?
It appeared to be, yes.
Okay. Any thoughts? I know that in speaking to Jeff, our options are really that $50 ticket as far as kind of repercussions for the cutting. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts or comments on that.
Well,
Dismally low.
It is. Joe, do you have something to say?
I mean, Jeff sent out that draft about penalties. Did everyone get a look at that, and did anyone send back comments? I mean, I thought it was fine.
I've commented back to Jeff. I think since that hasn't been officially adopted by us at this point, it sounds like it's not fair game to enforce with those fines. Joanne?
So I was chatting to Jeff about it today, and he said to me, if you felt like you would prefer, we could have Mr. Pucci kind of have a look at it and see what he thinks. You know, you could do with the fining, whether it is just the $50 or there was anything else.
So,
Ian?
So Madam Chair, I don't think I haven't read any email from Jeff about the upgrading the fines. Did I obviously missed it. Could Joe, could you forward it to me, please?
Yeah, I think he sent it. It might have been even 2 meetings ago. That it was like a single sheet, and it had like square footage cutting and then cutting tree.
Right. Yeah.
But since that's not like formally
right
in our
adopted,
yeah, it makes it difficult. Joe?
I mean, I think if everyone's sending comments and Jeff could redraft it, and then we could take one more look at it and then get it off to George. I think the sooner we can get this thing moving.
Yes.
Yeah. And I've definitely communicated that. But as far as Sacageur Road is concerned, do we want George to look at this specific enforcement and to try and apply maybe harsher penalties? Maureen?
Yes, I think I would like to see if there's anything within our current structure that would allow a harsher penalty, because that's obviously nothing, and it will be good to let people know that actions like that will have consequences. So I hardly endorse that.
Thank you, Maureen.
Yeah, I'll leave the specific declaration to town council to figure out what the fine needs to be. But I know that under our current structure, it's a $50 per day fine. And in some cases in the past, it's been questionable as to knowing how many days a violation occurred. But in this instance, it seems like we actually have data in the record from the Sarah Alger showing that the Mr. Johnson had been doing work at the site multiple days. I think that's recorded, so we might be able to do more than the $50 itself. There might be multiple days to enforce upon, and then yeah, I'd like to see the new fee structure go into place too. But obviously, we can't enforce on that since you have to work with the code that exists when the violation actually occurred.
So I've had a good idea.
Yes, Ian.
Well, couldn't you argue theoretically that, let's say it's a tree that would take 50 years to grow, then at $50 a day for the 50 years, that would be what, 15,000, 750,000, I believe. But we couldn't, well, I'm just suggesting that George argue on a case,
I think that seems a little steep in this case, but I do agree that, valuing things like mature trees being cut down is important, and we do need that reflected.
Absolutely, as long as it takes, the sapling to grow to the size of the tree that was cut down, and structure it accordingly at $50 a day.
Seth?
Yeah, I don't want to get off topic too much. Trying to stay on point with the specific violation that occurred, but I was thinking as part of this process when Seth Wilkinson discussed the trying to use basal inch or basal area as a way to think about how to have a better fine structure for mature tree cutting. I hadn't submitted those comments to Jeff initially, but I think that's something we could definitely think about, because right now in the draft that's written, it's, I think, by linear foot or square foot, depending on the area. And that's all fine and good for grasses or small shrubs, but it doesn't really get at mature trees. And it still never will, but it's a better way to try to address the problem.
Yes, I think that's good. And I had mentioned fining for trees to Jeff earlier, but I do think that's maybe for a later discussion about those fines, because again, unfortunately, we can't issue new fining structure on something that's already happened. So it sounds like from what I've heard that the majority of commissioners would like George to give a look at this to see if there's any way we could evaluate, the multiple. I think there were 3 or 4 days that maybe it was documented that there was either cutting or irrigation happening, to try and maybe beef up this fine a little bit.
I'll make a motion to that effect.
Okay. Is there a second? Seconded by Beal. So by roll vote, Beal.
Aye.
Engelborg.
Aye.
Erisman, aye. Golding.
Aye.
LaFleur.
Aye.
Phillips.
Aye.
Topham.
Aye.
Great. So Joanne, I guess we'll have George take a look at it, and we will kind of continue this matter until we can hear back from him.
Yeah, hopefully we can get a response and have it on the 6th of August and then close it out.
Thank you, Joanne.
You're welcome.
So that moves us on to reports. We have crack.
So, there's a difficult situation has developed with crack.
Deborah?
The RFPs are in from 7 companies, it turns out. And for the coastal resiliency proposals, Applied Coastal is one, Arcadis is another, ERG, Eastern Research Group is the third, GZA, Geoenvironmental Incorporated is the fourth, Horsley Witten Group, Woods Hole Group, and University of Florida. So, and there's a point of dissension has arisen because the town has decided that they want to review these proposals without sharing them with any members of crack. So they don't want anybody involved in the reviewing process, even though a number of us feel, since we're an advisory board to the select board, an advisory committee to the select board, that we would like to know what these RFPs are. And so we've got something of a stalemate here, because a number of us are feeling increasingly frustrated, as though we're a rubber stamp committee as opposed to really being involved. And we are basically being stonewalled and being told that, we can't participate. So there's, and in fact, I wrote a letter to the coordinator, an email to the coordinator and to the chair, saying that we'd like to discuss this further, to have some resolution at the next meeting, which is next Tuesday. And I haven't heard back from the chair yet. But in light of the last month and the 2 editorials in the paper about transparency in town governance, this seems to be, very much go against transparency. Because without knowing what the RFPs are, or without being part of the selection process, then in a sense, whoever is chosen, it's sort of structuring the argument or structuring the proposal without any of our input.
So Ian, I realize they're not letting you see the full proposals. Have those different groups done any sort of little presentation to you guys, or is it nothing?
Nothing.
Okay.
So, and specifically, I have an email here from the coordinator from July 15th. All appear to have the correct information for required documents, tax compliance, insurance, etc. in order, and so all cleared the first hurdle to be reviewed. The next step is for the panel to meet in early August to discuss the reviews and rank them using a prepared spreadsheet format. Once ranked, they go back to procurement where the financial proposals are opened, and they effectively go down the list of ranked companies to find the best fit for one highest ranked and two best priced proposal. This may not be the highest ranked company, but a happy medium of both high ranked and price fit. Neither I, this is the coordinator referring to himself, or others on the review committee are involved in the price proposal review. So is it just going to the select board then? And it's strictly the people within the town are going to choose which RFP, and then it goes forward without basically any input from CRAC.
Joanne?
Hi, thanks, Madam Chair. So typically with the procurement, what he's talking about there, it would be finance and the procurement officer, and then the assistant town manager that deals with the finance portion of the town that sit down and review RFPs. I'm not sure if anyone else might be on that board. I'm not sure, but I know typically it's done by finance and procurement. Right,
but from my point of view and others that I've spoken to, the subject matter of the RFP is extremely important, since we're talking about climate change and coastal resiliency and sea level rise. We want to see, what the RFPs have, how they choose to structure the examination that they're proposing to the town. And I don't see how I personally can advise the select board, which is, that is the CRAC was created to advise the select board, not to advise the town, to advise the select board. And so how can we get involved when we're being cut out of the, an essential part of the process?
No, Ian, I do find this concerning, and I worry that if it's just put in front of like financial officers, that they'll pick something that's cheaper and maybe not be looking at the long-term consequences, because this is a very important decision.
It is. And so it seems from my point of view and several others that I'm constrained by the open meeting law from discussing it with as many other members as I'd like to. But, we're very concerned. We really feel that we're baffled, actually. So.
I can see why. Mark, you have a comment or question?
I have a question for Ian. Who was preventing you from seeing these RFPs or helping draft them?
Well, the coordinator is the one who is saying that they're not available. So I haven't spoken to anybody in town administration at this point, which I suppose would be the next step. But, I'm just one member out of 9 in this committee. So
the staff person is preventing you, the coordinator of CRAC?
Well, the coordinator is saying that is relaying this message.
Yeah.
Maureen?
Yeah, because it might not be the coordinator who made that decision. The coordinator might have been directed by
Right.
someone else. I mean, I personally would think that is very likely.
I agree.
So I'm sitting here thinking, because this is certainly something that would affect the areas under our jurisdiction.
Right.
And so I'm wondering how, I really don't know if we make comments, or do we just simply ask questions? Can there be something that comes from us officially, or, you know, I'm just putting that out. Is that possible to do? And otherwise, you know, I would love to talk to you about this, Ian, and see, you know,
Sure.
what else could be done, because I'm also thinking of the other groups on the island. We've got a lot of nonprofits who
Right.
who care about this and are hoping for something good from this. I mean, there's multiple, and to exclude the advisory committee is, I mean, I'm stunned.
Right.
I'm just stunned. That's contrary to established practice, as well as a total failure of transparency.
Yeah.
So that's really appalling to me.
Well, thank you.
Any other questions or thoughts for Ian? Ian, I definitely agree that this is concerning, and that you guys should have a look at these proposals and some input there.
Yes, you would have thought. Thank you, exactly. And the fact that, you know, that a member of the of CRAC has been, it's been specifically relayed to us that no one from CRAC is welcome to even sit on the consultation. So,
Joanne?
So if you would like, we could definitely take a look into it for you, Ian, in the next
that would be
meeting.
great. Thank you so much, Joan.
Yeah, well, that would be great. You could, I mean, something on the order. I mean, I don't know, Madam Chair, but something on the order that we were made aware of this, or, you know, the Concom is interested and concerned about this. And
I mean, there's definitely state guidelines of how items are procured. So some of how it works is laid out a certain way, and it has to be followed to make sure there is no issues. So that's a part of it, of how they put out bids. It's all
Yes,
but we will find out for you, definitely.
But procurement is a separate issue from reading the RFPs, so being aware of the different proposals so that we have a feeling. So that's not even an involvement in procurement per se. That's just being aware of what the different companies are bringing to the table.
Right, and your group has some representatives from like Conservation Foundation, so you would think that they would want the input.
Yeah,
of
Linda Loring, Conservation Foundation. Yeah, and it's, you know, I mean, Jen's got a PhD, Sarah's got a PhD. You know, I mean, it's a good group.
Yeah.
right, and I'm quite sure there aren't any. There, that kind of that level of expertise is not readily available elsewhere at the moment, because
Right.
I don't understand how a financially based committee can evaluate the you know, the propriety and the scope and everything of what a specialized consultant's proposing. I mean, it's just, and it's, I mean, it's also crazy from a financial point of view. It's like, why would you make a decision without having all the knowledge about something, both what it costs and also what it's going to provide? I'm just
Yeah.
scratching my head.
Joe?
So I was on a housing authority review process, and there were 4 applicants. And one thing that the town did is they went through all their RPs, then they went through all of the applicants to make sure that they had the proper insurance, they could do this. They vetted them out, and there was one that didn't make the mustard. So we only saw 3 of the 4. So I don't know if that's what's going to be possibly happening, but I definitely think if Joanne looks into it, or Jeff, and says, like, is this a a typical step that the town normally does to vet them out. Because if you have 7 applicants and 3 of them are, don't hold, they can't perform the duties that we need, then it's a waste of time for you to read those 3, proposals. So
My
that's what it
understanding,
is.
my understanding is they've all cleared the financial hurdles. So tax compliance, certification, insurance, et cetera. So they've all cleared that hurdle.
Okay. All right.
But I totally take your point, Joe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll have Joanne and Jeff look into this, and then will you send information to the entire commission or just to Ian? Or
No, we will send it out to the entire commission, or talk about it next week's meeting. See what Jeff thinks is best and let you know.
thank you, Joanne.
Of course.
Thank you, Joe.
All right, so that moves us on to CPC.
So we met the other day and we had 4 fund requisitions, Nantucket Interfaith, Substantial Nantucket, and then the Affordable Housing Trust had 2 $5 million bonds that were available. So we approved all of those. But one of our big problems is we can't have a meeting to hear the applicant. So we're hoping that the Zoom forum will work. And we're gonna have 3 speakers. It's gonna be on August 18th, which is a Tuesday at 10 a.m. Should last about an hour, but it's really kind of problematic not having, sitting in the same room sometimes. But I think we're making headway on this. I think we're learning how to navigate through Zoom. So I hope it works pretty well, but otherwise it's all good. And no change of the chairs, elected officials, all the same.
Thank you, Joe.
No problem.
And then NP and EDC.
No meeting yet. We meet on Monday.
Okay. And then Mark, has your Pulpus Harbor committee met yet?
No meeting yet.
Okay. So that brings us to commissioners' comments. Any commissioners' comments?
No comment.
Did you have something to say, Mark?
No comment.
Oh, no comment. So I was wondering if there has been any progress on possibly liaising with the HDC that Joe suggested last time with Ray Pohl, and so that, I guess, is directed to Joe, and so I know you've got other things on your mind as well. So
an email was sent out that I'm part of, and I know there was interest from the planning board chair and the HDC chair, as well as myself, obviously. But we have not coordinated a meeting time or any of that at this point. But there was absolutely interest from those other boards. So
great. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Joe?
So I've heard that one Hollyback has not been in the plus department this week. She's having problems trying to find a babysitter. So she's been working from home, and I think she's really having a hard time struggling trying to get some stuff done. So that's why I think she's radio silent on that end. But I do think she would be very interested from what I heard on the Zoom. So.
Yeah, I think we are making positive steps towards making this meeting happen, but as I think we're all aware now, being on this commission, sometimes things move much more slowly than we would like. But hopefully this fall, we'll be able to coordinate everything, would be my hope. But then you get into other childcare issues because what's happening. Any other commissioners' comments? I just have one. I was contacted by Bruce Mandel about the Vineyard Wind project, and I know he spoke to us probably a year ago and made public comment about Vineyard Wind, and he specifically is concerned with mitigation for the undersea cable, because that is within our jurisdiction. I know we've already permitted the undersea cable, but I didn't know if other commissioners wanted to bring this up as a discussion item later on, to discuss the wind project and, potential implications for Nantucket, and maybe to parse out what is under our jurisdiction and what we potentially can control or mitigate, and then what, we have kind of no jurisdiction or control over. Is there interest in that, Maureen?
Actually, I'm on the town working group, the wind power working group. And so I have sat in on many meetings with Vineyard Wind, and I think and I'm well aware of Bruce's concerns. He's on the board with me for the Nantucket Conservation Association. And in terms of jurisdiction, because the only physical impact, as opposed to visual, on Nantucket was for that cable which goes up in the Muskegon Channel, and that was approved last year or year before. That's from a Vineyard Wind point of view, that was our bite at the apple, and they are now moving along to getting the rest of the approvals that are necessary with the federal government and everyone else. What I think going forward will be important, because there are Mayflower Wind and Equinor are the next two groups, and our working group has met with them, and so I think the implications of what the Concom approval weren't necessarily fully understood before. So it's something that I think we'd want to, be more aware of. But for Vineyard Wind, as far as I can tell, that is there isn't a jurisdictional issue anymore for us. I don't think.
No, I agree with you. And I think we spoke about that when Bruce commented during public comment.
Yeah.
And in our order of conditions for them, I think it was one of the findings, we wrote about multiple cables and that there, are impacts to more cables going through there.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if it's worth bringing up for the potential future wind projects going through there, or if there's even any information for us to review as a commission, but sounds like maybe not. Seth?
Yeah, I know a few things, and anyone feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that BOEM, the Bureau of Offshore Energy Management, is currently putting the Vineyard Wind project on hold. They announced it was permanently on hold. Who knows what that means in the federal government, but.
When did you hear this? Because I'm not aware of that. So, I just don't, on hold, Yeah,
they're working forward with the permitting, but I'll have to find, don't quote me on anything right now, I'll have to find the information. But
I don't think there's certainly been, BOEM has not followed their own procedures and has made this difficult for everybody, opponents and proponents alike, because they haven't followed their procedures. But I do not think that's the case now. Things are, as far as I am aware, things are moving, along. And I feel quite sure that's not the case from a very recent meeting I had with all the interested parties.
Yeah, it was a little bit dated at this point when I heard that, so it might have changed at this point. But
yeah, I'm sure it has. Yeah.
I think that in terms of that project, the time's passed, and I think that in terms of future projects, it's important to think about. But we should just approach each application as it comes in. I don't know if we need to necessarily have a policy with like a standing policy or anything like that.
Okay.
Well, and as this goes forward, I will, there's stuff I can share with everybody and we can see whether we want to do that. There's going to be a number of wind farms off our shore, but not all of them may even have their cable through our waters, depending on where they are. So I'll keep people up to speed if there's anything new on this, but that's, we may, as you said, we may not even need to have a policy and just consider each one on its own merits.
Seth, I have to say, I thought the Vineyard Wind project had been put on hold too, and I must have missed that the process started up again, because I think that was like maybe a year ago.
Oh yeah, because the BOEM issued a new, a supplemental environmental impact statement about a month ago, I want to say. You know, it's this thick if you look at paper, and you know, goes into all of the impacts, you know, marine mammals, the impacts that Nantucket is most concerned about, is the, you know, the impact on the island as a national historic landmark, and getting and working with these wind power companies so that there is mitigation involved for what we know is going to be, you know, some visual impact as well as simply its existence out there where nothing has ever been, and that's part of who we are as an island, being out where we are. So
yeah, I just looked up some information, and it does look like guidance was issued in June of this year, which I was not aware of. So before that, I knew there had been some permitting issues at BOEM, but it appears, as Maureen and the internet is saying, that it has since changed.
Thank you, Seth. Ian, did you have a comment?
Well, you know, there's a certain irony involved here. You know, we've got McMansions as far as I can see, and yet we, you know, have this sort of pseudo claim to historical significance, and which I find it staggering. And Maureen, please don't get me wrong, but you know, the fact is, the more wind turbines, the better, as far as I'm concerned, just like the Dutch, in terms of trying to mitigate climate change. And here we are talking 10 minutes earlier about how we're severely threatened, as few communities are, by rising sea levels and climate change. And at the same time, we don't seem to be able to get this balance between the two. You know, we don't have solar panels because of the aesthetics and so on and so forth. Yeah. So I just find there's a certain level of irony involved here. You know, what I'd like to see is that lobsters follow the cables so that we could put lobster traps and have unlimited lobsters, but that's just me.
Yeah.
We could really go down the rabbit hole with sustainable energy, but you know, there is an issue with developing a green field or a blue field if it's the ocean that's completely pristine versus putting windmills like at the dump, which should have been a no-brainer for the town of Nantucket. But you know, we're always, no matter where you live, you're gonna face that sort of
right.
But it sounds like we're not going to have further discussion on this at this time, or have a specific discussion item. But I'm glad I brought it up. And, you know, it'll just have us thinking for, you know, future potential applications. So if there are no other commissioners' comments, we'll move on to administrator staff reports. Joanne, is there any?
No, we don't have anything to report.
Okay. Well, with that then, Maureen?
My only comment would be is that I think we need to stop Jeff from coming, because this is the shortest meeting we've had since I've been on the board.
Right, when I'm running it, the agenda gets way down.
Yeah, yeah.
Good job, Joanne.
Especially since he can't share the hors d'oeuvres from the yacht club. You know?
I know, right?
All right. Well, with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
We all just want to stay.
Second.
by Seth, by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Harrisman, I, Golding,
Aye.
LaFleur,
Aye, and good night.
Phillips,
Good night.
Top.
Sorry, yes. Aye and good night.
I took that as your eye. Topham,
Aye. Good night, Gracie.
Thanks, Joe.
oh, yes.
Thanks, Ashley. Take care,
Thank
everybody.
you. Thank
Thanks,
you, everyone.
everybody.
Bye. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night, everyone. Thank you,
Bye.
Ashley.